careful, please. That elite was an ultra.
There's a story in the New Testament that's lately started to confuse me. A couple of them. But the one that I'm thinking of is the Barabbas story, right? So the way it goes is that Jesus, the Son of God, is in prison, and he is a Messiah, right? And then also in prison is this guy named Barabbas, which apparently means like son of the Father. He's also in prison, but he's described as like a political insurrectionist. Sometimes it's translated as robber, but it's more like a insurgent, I think is a much better word. He's an insurgent, he's a revolutionary. There's this weird story in the New Testament that frankly, I don't understand. Maybe you can understand it, because I know what the traditional interpretations are, but I'm a little confused what the Mormon interpretation would be. So anyway, it's Passover, and Pontius Pilate, he says, we're going to be able to release one prisoner, so tell me who you want to release. We'll release this Jesus guy, because he seems like a pretty stand-up fellow. And then they say, no, crucify him, his blood be upon us and upon our children. We choose Barabbas. And so they release Barabbas. And the way I've heard this explained by Christians and true Christians, aka Mormons, alike, is that, Christ, he was a spiritual leader, he had a spiritual kingdom, he was a spiritual Messiah, and the Jews, they were looking for a political Messiah who would free them from the Romans, who would defeat the Roman Empire, all that. And so this has made a distinction between that God's kingdom is spiritual and not physical, and that a real political actionary or whatever, a real political movement is not what we need to do. So politics is lay bad, spiritual movement lay good. And this is a little confusing to me. And then there's also these statements by Jesus to Pontius Pilate where he says, my kingdom is not of this world. If they were of this world, my followers would fight. And people have said, he's saying that his kingdom is in heaven and that if it was on earth, then like his angels would come fight. Okay. But then you get to the Restoration where Joseph Smith was kind of like Barabbas, I guess, in that there was a political, physical component to building the kingdom of God. With Nauvoo and Kirtland, they're physical cities. He's the mayor of said city. He's running for president. He's organizing the saints economically as well as spiritually. He's teaching them spiritual truths. He's teaching them economic truths. He's giving them a holistic picture. And so this doesn't exactly jive with what's in the New Testament. So is the New Testament wrong? Modern biblical scholars tend to believe that this Barabbas story is bunk, that it's not real. And, I don't like that approach. I'd like to think that it's real. Certainly, the people there in Jerusalem really wanted to kill Jesus. And I think that if they were given the opportunity to save Barabbas, they would take it. I wouldn't put it past them. I think it's really uncomfortable for people, this whole idea of a curse being put upon the Pharisees and their children. So they want to try and debunk the story. And so I don't want to do that. I like the New Testament, but this is something that just doesn't make sense to me. So when Christ says that his kingdom is not of this world, does that mean he wasn't organizing a real kingdom? Or is he just saying that his kingdom, like his political movement, is nonviolent? Is that what he's saying? When he says that if they were of this world, they would fight. Saying, my political followers, like the movement that I'm trying to build, is nonviolent. See, that would make more sense, because Zion, the building of Zion, will result in a kingdom that rules the entire world. But it's not going to be through conquest. It's just going to be through default. And we don't believe that we're going to need to be a warlike people and go conquer all the other nations like Israel in the Bible. This is not something that we need to do. If we build a city that can withstand the end of the world, then the end of the world will come in and will withstand it. And then we'll just inherit the world by default. No violence needed. Anyway, so maybe I'm missing something here. I don't really understand these statements in the New Testament and how they can mesh with the building of an actual physical kingdom. I've seen Mormons repeat this. I've seen members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints repeat this fact. It's, a spiritual kingdom versus a political kingdom. This is why the church is politically neutral. This is why we must do nothing as our enemies circle about us like ravening wolves. It's just confusing to me, because I think that Joseph Smith would have something to say about that. He'd certainly have something very insightful to say about that. I've tried to look around and find something about it, but I haven't found it yet. So I don't know. If you know something, let me know. That's a question that I have questions that need answering. What is the correct interpretation of this Barabbas guy? What kind of a guy was he, and how exactly was he different than what Christ wanted? And if Christ appeared to Joseph Smith, and Joseph Smith's mission was Christ's mission, if he was really taught by Christ and was trying to accomplish what Christ was trying to accomplish, like a true restoration, then what's going on with that? One thing that I have been able to find that seems related is Joseph Smith's interpretation of the allegory of the parable of the mustard seed. You know, it's like this small little seed grows into a large bush, and even the birds will come to live in it. You know, the way he explained it is, you know, the kingdom of God, it starts small, you can build it, and then the angels will come roost in the branches. The birds that come and roost in the trees of the mustard bush or whatever, they're angels. And that's talking about the city of Enoch. And what he means is that, you know, the city of Enoch, or when we build Zion, will start small like a mustard seed, but you can grow it to the point that the angels will come and roost in it. They will come to visit you. You know, everyone always thinks of it like a tree, but it's not a tree. But it is related to the kingdom of God, and those are the angels that come live in it. So anyway, this is not meant to be a gotcha. It's just a genuine, I haven't found the correct conclusion on this quite yet, but I think that the default assumptions about it are wrong. So those are my thoughts on Barabbas. Give us Barabbas, the insurgent. How is he different? What makes him different than Christ? I haven't figured it out. Oh. One other thing on the Barabbas myth that I forgot to add is that Jesus Christ did conquer the Roman Empire. That's a thing that people tend to forget. Jesus Christ did conquer the Roman Empire, did become a political, global thing. Like, he did inherit the earth in that sense. So what's up with that? Oh, Jesus is nonviolent. Sounds like a Protestant thing, because I think the Catholics would say, no, Jesus did conquer the world through the Roman Empire. He became Rome. And so I think it's the Protestant ideas they want to deny Rome and say that, oh, Jesus is spiritual. He's not about a physical empire that's going to conquer and Christianize the entire planet, which is what he actually did. Everyone knows about Christ because of the Roman Empire, basically. Even Joseph Smith knew to go to the grove and pray to Jesus Christ because of the Roman Empire. So Christ did conquer the world spiritually and politically. That's another important detail that I forgot to mention. That was kind of the last final detail I wanted to mention. With all that in mind, now what? How do we resolve all that? I guess that the point I'm trying to make here is that it seems like people like to think that Barabbas and Jesus were very distinct. And the point I'm trying to make here is I think that Jesus looked a lot more like Barabbas than you would expect, and Barabbas looked a lot more like Jesus than you would expect. And while I do think that the Pharisees did know the difference and wanted Christ dead anyway, I think a lot of people probably didn't know the difference much. And since their leaders told them to pick Barabbas, they accepted it. And anyway, that's just concerning to me, and so until I find a good answer of how exactly Barabbas and Christ were different, it's hard for me to believe that if a antichrist figure appeared and claimed he was Christ, I think a lot of people would be deceived. And I guess that's the point I'm trying to make. Because I think that Satan is actually very good at imitating Christ. And so the reason why I want the answer to this is just because I want to be able to tell them apart. Because all we do is talk about Jesus, and yet we know that not everyone who believes in Jesus, who says, Lord, Lord, will recognize him, or will know him, or he won't recognize them. Just some ideas I had about the Barabbas thing. Anyway, that's all.